So beginning in the early 80s, a group of citizens, which I was not involved with at the outset, pushed for creating a city out here.
Typically you'd run into an obstacle like, the county says no, you just pack it in and say can't do it. But this particular group fought all the way to the Supreme Court.
And for any group of people that could hold together for a whole decade and really sacrifice, really said a lot about the residents of this community.
Citrus Heights was a forsaken community by the County of Sacramento. When we formed the city, the first night we had our first meeting, we discovered that we didn't even have insurance if someone sued the city.
We've seen this community grow up and actually struggle and then take control of its own affairs with incorporation and thrive.
Yeah, one of the really things that attracted me to Citrus Heights 18 years ago is the fact that it was a newly incorporated city. And coming to a new city for the first time was like an opportunity of a lifetime.
And so Henry was our general services director for maybe about a year. And Mike Oliver said, okay, I've done this for 2 years now. I'm really a retired person. I want to go back to being retired. The city council at that time, put out an RFP for looking for a new city manager.
He did apply. He was the only internal candidate that made an application. So after several debate and the council's fears, we had a real long meeting, and I think Bill Hughes, myself, and Roberta said, let's move forward with Henry. And the fourth council member, Jeff Rainey, says, I can count to 3. And that's how Henry became the city manager.
When he came on, of course, we were just a new city, only a couple of years old. And so he had a lot of things that he had to do and accomplish.
When Henry got the job here, the whole entire discussion was about how to make the lives better of the people of Citrus Heights, how to make the community better.
He took the bull right by the horns and he hired some good people to work for the city.
The city wanted him to come on board in August 1998, but he asked if he could come in a month later, September, because his twin boys were 6 weeks old and he wanted to spend some family time with them before coming on board to the city.
When Henry did become city manager, some of the things that he did, he immediately jumped into action and started to cultivate relationships with all aspects of the community. He started out with the residents and with the businesses in Citrus Heights, the business owners.
It just seemed like things started progressing right after he took over. Different things were happening to the city.
We have never incurred debt, and that is largely attributable to Henry's philosophy and the philosophy of our early city council members who were in harmony on the fact that we had to be very careful because we knew we weren't getting our property tax revenue for 25 years and we had to manage without it. And that meant that we couldn't have everything we wanted today.
We adopted an economic development strategy which outlines what we need to do to grow business in the community and grow the economy.
It's easy to get into debt. You have all these bond people trying to convince you that there's ways of paying for things.
And so we basically, there were some questions about, will this work? Maybe we weren't spending enough money in the city. Maybe we should have went in debt and borrowed some money. But Henry kept us focused. And if we just listened to his plan and his vision, that Citrus Heights would be a model city. And it took a lot of reservation from the council because sometimes we wanted to spend money and Henry was advising us not to.
Henry saw on the horizon the recession that cities in California and the United States went through. And he started to take steps early to plan for it.
During unpredictable times, Henry has positioned us in a way that we have a great foundation and stability, financial stability.
We all went through 2008 and those, years after that, and it was a very hard time.
When those times were a little bit dire financially, he would call and he would have this anguish in his voice about what to do, how to do it. But the thing he was determined is to keep the employees as happy as he possibly could.
Henry came in and said, okay, look, we're all going to weather this storm together, but that's going to require all of us to do some sacrificing so that all of us can stay as whole as possible. So while other cities were, bleeding money, laying folks off, laying staff off, implementing furloughs, we didn't do any of that. Henry's philosophy was, we're all going to sacrifice and everybody's going to keep their job, but we all have to sacrifice in order to make this happen.
He's always put a focus on work-life balance and tried to keep things lighthearted and no nonsense. Families matter, people matter. That's not something that can be compromised.
Every time we've had a problem, instead of throwing our hands up in the air, they sat down and solved it. And leadership matters.
I implemented what was called the pay-as-you-go philosophy. And so once I established that conservative approach to managing the city's financial resources, then I had to establish the top priorities for the city.
Options that we had was to contract with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. But we discovered after 10 years, our contract kept going up $1 million a year. Henry said, James, we can do better. So we began to lobby the council, and we actually began a process of having our own police department. The community really was not in favor of it initially, but Henry and the council convinced the community this was our only option.
And we went back and forth. The sheriff would make a presentation and we'd go, yeah, we should stay with the sheriff's contract. And then the city staff would come in and would go, no, we should go with the city. And I could just feel it back and forth.
Because the sheriff's department had been patrolling citrus sites since I've been here, 1980. And while there were a lot of folks who weren't satisfied with that, there were still people who were comfortable with the sheriff's department patrolling our community and not having our own police department.
Well, the sheriff did a good job of putting fear in the community that we would not be successful and we'll be back on our knees begging them to come back again.
I found out later that Henry was kind of following all this, and he got really ticked off that we couldn't see the logic in forming our own police department.
And Henry was able to convince the council, convince the community how wonderful it would be, and there were a lot of folks who thought for sure that he was going to fall on his face, the city was going to fall on his face, and in no time at all we'd be back in the county asking for them to come back and patrol our community. That didn't happen, as you all know.
Henry is also extremely skilled at picking personnel to accomplish his goals. One of the shining examples, of course, is his selection of Christopher Boyd to head the police department.
Well, what I remember most about first getting to know Henry was when I became a finalist for the police chief job back at the end of 2005. It got to the point for the city manager interview. But the thing about it, it lasted over 5 hours. And again, I've never experienced anything quite like that, but I got to learn all about what his vision was. This guy was determined to not only start his own police department, but have really the best police department in California.
Then it became a question of how fast could we do this? You don't set up a 911 center, get police cars, uniforms, much less talented personnel in a month or 3 months or 6. But Henry wanted to make it happen fast. And I think rather than an 18-month period, he got it down to a 12-month period.
They went around and they found the money to set the police force up, create their own police headquarters, and hire a chief and get the thing stood up. And that's worked also.
Crime reduction was extremely important. And because of Henry's vision, we've really been able to put in some award-winning and extraordinary, cutting-edge crime reduction concepts that have really worked great.
And Henry was the leader that we needed at that time. He was the perfect leader, and he had the vision, and he had his priorities straight.
And then there were 2 smaller community centers that we built in the city. One to serve some of our advantaged or disadvantaged residents out in the Sayonara neighborhood.
A community behind Greenback and Sunrise Boulevard. And it was riddled with crime, absentee landlords, and so the people that live there, were kind of neglected.
And then we built another smaller center on Sylvan that also provides services to the community. So all these facilities that we built at that time, we built with cash. Our next area of priority was a community of 88,000+ people. We had no place for people to assemble in Citrus Heights. So we had over 80,000 people and no community meeting place. So my next priority was to build a new community center for the residents.
So it took 10 years to find a place for our community center, but it also took 10 years to save the money to build it for cash.
And everybody at that time was talking about, we need a place to grab, let's build the community center.
He found a great location, as we all know, and he was able to deliver that, again, under budget and on time.
And ultimately, as I close out my career with the city in the next few weeks, one of my biggest goals was to try to get a new city hall built for our employees.
This new city hall, it's amazing. I mean, I still, like today, driving in going, wow, I can't believe this really happened. Even though I was a big part of it, I can't believe that I get to drive up every day to this big, beautiful building and provide service to the people in this community and be proud of it.
We hired our first city manager and we were off and running. And so from that point of having no employees, we went from there to what it is today. And now we're sitting in a paid-for new city hall. That was one of the original vision of the original council.
Besides just residents, it is a huge change in the entire environment. Not just crime, but just the overall appearance of the city.
All over the region, people look to Citrus Heights because we have been very successful.
Administration is head and shoulders above any other jurisdiction in this area.
It's hard to describe Henry Tingle because he's a man of few words, but yet he's a man of many, many, many words.
Just to see this tall man come in was a little intimidating, but then you smiled and it kind of lit up the whole front office there.
Just really a gentle giant.
And as I got to know him a little bit better, why he's big, but he's a teddy bear.
The man, the gentle giant, Henry Tingle, is leaving us, and it won't be the same without Henry.
He was not then, nor ever was, a yes person or a rubber stamp. He worked on his ideas and concept as to what was best for the city.
I learned very quickly that it's not about politics, it's not about anything but doing what's right for the community, what's right for the city, etc., and that's what he's done.
That is kind of what he has taught me, that everybody matters in this community.
When he was hiring me, that the vision was to serve our community with the highest levels of customer service, that when the citizen calls or comes into the police department, they were the most important person in that moment.
So I just have a grateful heart that I've been part of the history of Citrus Heights during the Henry Tingle era, and that as I, live out the rest of my life here and go about my business here, I can point to things and know that his hand touched it, and that the part that he played in creating and growing and giving us the quality of life that we enjoy here will stay with us long after he is retired.
We're really going to miss Henry, I'll tell you. Chris has got some big shoes to fill because Henry has been just super for our city.
First person that greeted me when I came in the door for the holiday party was Henry, and he gave me a bear hug beyond belief.
He always tells me, whenever your mom fries chicken, be sure to bring me a piece.
Your support is unparalleled to anyone that I've ever worked for before.
You lead from behind. I've noticed that. You aren't always out in front of projects and out in front of things. You let your staff take the praise.
I don't know if I have words that are adequate to express how I feel about you.
The city will miss you, the council will miss you.
And you're not just a nice person, you are a good person.
A real pleasure and a delight to work with you.
It excels, and Henry is one of the top city managers in the region, probably this nation. A city that's never been in debt, a city that's paid for everything by cash. No one has topped that.
We have to get better at fishing. Now's the time.
This table is always going to be reserved for you. All you got to do is show up, my friend.
I can't thank you enough for what you've done.
For his leadership in the city.
And the goals and the things that I've been able to achieve under your leadership.
Henry, your impact, it'll be felt for decades.
And I'll carry the lessons that you've taught me as I move forward.
Henry, you personify the phrase, leadership matters.
To be your successor, there's no greater honor for me than to take over as city manager and carry on your tremendous legacy. And one final thing I just wanted to make sure you know, we'll never go into debt. I can assure you that.
How you doing, Dad? It's been a long 18 years, but congratulations on your retirement, man. You really deserve it. And see you work hard my whole life, man. I'm glad to see you be able to relax and go hang out with moms, go do something fun.
It's your boy Damien here, back at it again. You know, I'm the youngest. We grown up now, we got tattoos and stuff, but congratulations. No more riding on bikes, no more hospital bills. Go fishing or something, don't do anything active.
Love you very much, Pop. You don't know how much it meant to me seeing you put that suit on every morning. This is your night. I know you really deserve it. Reporting live from Waikiki. You know I wish I was there. I know I'm looking a little too scruffy. Wish I was looking a little bit better, but I've been working. All right, love you guys. You guys all have a good one.
Again, I am so proud of you for the work that you have done. You have illustrated your leadership, your commitment, your determination for many to see. You have also illustrated to your boys throughout your career that your dreams will come true if you just put in the work. With all that said, as you leave from the workplace, remember, I will be by your side, step by step, for this new, exciting adventure.
This opportunity calls for a song. And so on the count of 3, I think we should all sing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow. 1, 2, 3. For he's a jolly good fellow. For he's a jolly.
Happy retirement, Henry.
Thank you, Henry, and have a great retirement.
Farewell, Henry. Happy fishing.
Henry, we decided that you have to clone yourself twice. One to retire, one to stay here with us, and the other one to go to Washington and straighten out the mess there.
We'll miss you, Henry.
Thank you, HT. Enjoy the retirement and bring us some barbecue.